Oh, but yeah, early Saturday morning. Yeah, it snowed there on early Saturday, and they had that. It's much probably they cleaned the roads and stuff there, and then the Sunday. And we took the sled, but I was thinking about the sled, they had something for the sled. And then we it was, no, it was snow. 50 cheese. You know, over on this side. Just she said, so sometimes it goes along with that's it was real good. It was real good. Yeah, I call it. Yeah, I call it.
It hardly messes the setting there. Are you doing steady?
It's time for dinner Wednesday evening Bible study. I'll take this opportunity to welcome everyone here. I'm sure to do appreciate your presence. I know we've got a really nice old evening. Rain and rain. Up an inch or so already, and it's supposed to rain some more. But anyway, be careful if you don't drive like Sissy does. She get a river, and I'll probably gonna float that ditch for a minute. I'll holler, slow down. She keep going into it. But anyway. Be careful out there. We have got a number of folks that are out tonight sick, dealing with this old COVID again. Of course, Sister Sue Smith, Sue's at home, and she's having quarantine because her granddaughter has it. Of course, Vicki Sanders is home dealing with it. Tommy Case texted me just a little while ago. He has got COVID. Of course, Sean Trimble. His family is dealing with COVID, where they're at. Judy, you got a good report, I understand.
I did agree with you today.
Well, just asked Randy about his. Anyway, we certainly are thankful for that, and that both of you got a good report. Our prayers and thanks there. Also, please continue to remember Tina Briggs and her husband. Both of them are dealing with COVID. Of course, Lester Strickland, as y'all all remember, I told you last Wednesday night, Lester hurt his hand. He went back to the doctor with it Monday, and he's still having some problems. Marlene said she reckons she's going to have to tie it above his head. She can't make him understand that he's supposed to keep that hand above his heart right now to keep it from bleeding. But anyway, she said the doctor told him that it looks to him as though it is healing some, but it's just going to be a long process. So please remember them as well. Also, continue to remember the family of Claudine Simmons. She passed away. Let's see. Also, Grace Jones. Grace is in Selma. don't forget about her. Of course, also Michael Kennedy's mom and dad, Larry and Patricia Kennedy. My last report I had on Larry, he was back in the hospital. Some of you may have heard since I have, but that's the last report I had, that he was back in the hospital and not doing well. So please remember his mom and dad. And is there anyone else that you think Noah Nash. He's in the hospital. Yeah, he's in the hospital right now. Yeah, and they did the first surgery on him today or yesterday?
Yes, Monday.
Monday, okay. Okay, this is
My brother's, grandson.
John Nat, it's his grandson.
James's grandson.
James.
JJ.
Okay, I'll get straight here in a minute. Quit shaking your head at me, John, I can't even call him yet. But anyway, please remember him, because this young man's got a lot he's going to be having to go through with before it's all.
He's gonna have surgery tomorrow, say.
Yeah, but I understand, if I read right, he's going to wind up with about 6 or 8 different surgeries. Everything goes as planned.
Monday they're gonna do his back. I don't know
Okay.
if they'll do his leg or something.
Anyway, please remember him, Noah Nat. Is anyone else I've overlooked?
Nelson's quarantine.
That's right, Nelson Rickman is quarantined as well. It's got to the point where we can tell who ain't quarantined and everybody that is, so there's so many. Is anyone else that you know of? Okay. I have a card here I want to read. It says, "Thank you for all the goodies, fruit, candy, and snack packs. I'm still eating on it. It was so nice of you to remember me. I appreciate it. Lillian Summer." I'll post this and I'll read it again Sunday. Also, for our youth and us as well, Valentine's lunch will be our first Sunday fellowship meal over at Fellowship Hall, February 6th. The youth will be doing the cooking of the soups and dessert, and will be serving. So they always do this each Valentine's, so keep that in mind. Our first Sunday meal, the youth will be taking care of that and serving us and so forth. So be sure. I need to bring some tips. Do they not have no tips? Okay. But anyway, keep that in mind, and we'll read this again Sunday as well. Let's see, our birthdays are left is Faith Kennedy, Adam Sanders, and of course Tommy and Couture, their anniversary. Wish them happy birthday and anniversary as well. Hope to have many more, of course. Brother Ronnie will be leading our singing. First song will be 387. Everyone will secure a song book turn there. Our prayer, I'll do the opening prayer. And Bill, will you do the closing prayer, please? Brother Ronnie.
All 3 verses 387. That's fun. Tell me the story of Jesus, write on my heart every word. Tell me the story most precious, sweetest that ever was heard. Tell how the angels in chorus sang as they welcomed his birth. Glory to God in the highest, peace and good tidings on earth. Tell me the story of Jesus, write in my heart every word. Tell me the story most precious, sweetest that ever was heard. Please sing alone in the depths. Tell of the days that are past, how for our sins was tempted, yet was triumphant at last. Tell of the years of his labor, tell of the sorrow he bore. He was despised and afflicted, homeless, rejected, and poor. Tell me the story of Jesus, write on my heart every word. Tell me the story most precious, sweetest that ever was heard. Tell of the cross where they nailed him, writhing in anguish and pain. Tell of the grave where they laid, tell how he lived again. Love is that story so tender, clearer than ever I see. Say, let me weep while you whisper, love paid the ransom for me. Tell me the story of Jesus, write on my heart every word. Tell me the story most precious, sweetest that ever was heard.
Our Heavenly Father, we come thanking you for this another day of our lives. We're so thankful for the many blessings you bestow upon each other each day we go. We're thankful for the opportunity we have tonight to be able to come together, sing these songs of praise, and hear the setting on the home of the Bible. We pray, Heavenly Father, for all of those that are missing here tonight that's on the sick leave. Pray, Heavenly Father, that you look down on each other. Now, tender love and mercy, you grant to them the things that only you know they need. Be thy will. They can soon be back to the most important needed place in this life. I pray also, Heavenly Father, to give you the thanks and the glory for answering our prayers on behalf of those that have been out having tests ran, have gotten good news. We give you all the glory. Thank you for answering our prayers. I pray, Heavenly Father, for the church here of praise. I pray that we can continue to grow spiritually, well as in knowledge. I pray also, Heavenly Father, for Brother John and his family as he labors here with us. I pray that you will grant him a long, beautiful life by service. I pray also, Heavenly Father, for Phil and myself. I pray that you will bless us with the wisdom and knowledge that we need to make decisions that are right in thy sight. I pray also for Ronnie as he carries out the works that are signing in. And I pray for him, for Ronnie, and for Fanny both as they lead us here in song. I pray that you will continue to bless them as they do this good work. I pray, Heavenly Father, for this great country we live in. I'm so thankful for all the freedoms that we have, especially the freedom to be able to worship thee without fear. I pray, Heavenly Father, for our elected officials. I pray these men and women will start working together in unity for the betterment of our country. And I pray as they make decisions that they look to you for the guidance they need, and those decisions will be right in thy sight. I pray, Heavenly Father, for the teachers of the hour. I pray that you grant each of them a ready recollection of the lesson they have prepared. Those of us listeners will take and apply it to our life. I pray that you go with us now as we go down to the future walk of our life and forgive each of us before we fail it. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
That's the reason. It's like this, I just get one.
Well, it's coming all the way down Farmington Road.
Right. Hope everybody's doing well. This evening, I think most of us stayed mostly dry, kind of, sort of. I do appreciate Bobby taking care of the class for me last week. Yeah, it was last Wednesday, or Tuesday night, Chloe started feeling a little crummy. She complained a little bit about her throat hurting. And really that was about it. We took her temp, but it was kind of low grade, mid 99s, which is not unusual for children, really. And if we were to go to the doctor with that, they would have said it's not a fever. It's just kids fluctuate their temperatures, okay? So we didn't think much about it. And then we woke up on Wednesday morning, and Chloe was she was at about 103 point something. So it was a pretty good temperature. She had been complaining about her throat hurting a little bit, but it could have been sinus drainage. We didn't think too much about it. Then when all of those pieces started to fall together, we assumed that it was strep, and it was strep and COVID at the same time, which is awesome. And I've heard that now COVID is started hanging out with the flu too. What is it, flu Rona that they're calling it? It's just, why are we giving this thing another nickname? I don't understand why we're doing that. The good news is, I guess, if we can take any good news from this, it's that this latest variant, the Omicron variant, seems to be less severe than some of the variants before. As far as symptoms go, I know it seems to be more easily passed between people, but it's still not fun. But I guess if we have to pick what we can pick, it's easier to transmit. That means that at some point everybody's going to have had it, and then hopefully the natural immunity will hit pretty soon, I hope. They said that after Christmas we can expect it to hit February or so, I think is what I read. I hope that that's true, and that they aren't lying to us again. So anyway, I know that last week Bobby decided that he was going to skip the rest of chapter 9. And the reason that I think he did that was because he was afraid. I'm just kidding. No, I understand why he did it. I think that we were kind of talking about it beforehand, and there's some pretty stern ideas here in this next part. And I think that if we were to talk, okay, remember again, something that Bobby established, and we've established it several times. At the beginning of the study last week, Bobby mentioned again that this was written, or it was copywritten in 1971. Okay? And something that Bobby said too was that doesn't mean that it was written in 1971, it could have been written before that, right? And so one of the things that I think is important to understand is that at that point in time, you got to think, okay, this is Brother Winkler 50 plus years ago. Okay, I don't know how old he is now. But let's say on the outside, I remember seeing him at polishing the pulpit maybe 5 years ago or 6 years ago, and you know he's considerably older than I am. But if this was written 50 years ago, then let's assume that on the outside, I don't think he was 90, but let's say that he was 30 when he wrote this. Okay. And having now been past my 30s, and think about that as a 30-year-old person. Okay, how old are your kids? Huh? Well, but like, no, if you were 30, how old are your children? 10ish? 10 to 12 years old. Maybe, okay? That's a conservative answer, okay? So if they're 10 to 12 years old, okay, you know, that's Chloe's age. And when I think about that, what kind of life experience had he had up to that point? And I'm not trying to say that everything that he said here is wrong. I think that the things that he said here come from a point of view that it's limited in its realism, perhaps. And here's another thing too that we got to understand too, is that this is also written at a point in time where, okay, coming out of, if it's 1971, this Wendell Winkler that wrote this, he grew up in the 1950s and the 1960s, and so let's assume then that he's witnessed a couple of things in American history that are significant to the point here. Okay, one of those things is McCarthyism. Okay, what is McCarthyism? Does anybody remember what that was? Okay, so coming out of World War II, McCarthyism was basically if you had this kind of hair or a big bushy beard, you might be a communist. And it's not just that you might be a communist, it's that you were a communist until you could prove that you weren't. That's McCarthyism. Okay, so in other words, and the thing that everybody would do to avoid being called a communist would be to have a really spiffy haircut and be clean shaven, and they would have the cat, it would be mom and dad and brother and sister, cat, dog, white picket fence, and anything outside of that was taboo. Okay, so what they would do too is, and that's why we saw in the 1950s there was a huge push toward religion in the United States. Everything's cut and dry. Okay, everything's black and white. Is life black and white? Is everything simple, as simple as black and white? There's always shades of gray, right? And everything that happens, it has to be taken within its context. Context is something that I'm talking about right now in my classes. Context is key. And when we look at the things that are here, that are written in this next page, or page and a half, there's not a lot of context that's being applied here. It's a lot of black and white. And Bobby, when we talked about it before, he was like, it's some of it's going to be controversial. Some of it might be, some people might come away offended by it. But I want to look at it. I want to look at this perspective, because what we have seen in the church, we've talked about this too, is how hard-hearted some people within the church are about certain things. And how we traditionally have approached people, and a lot of that is born in this kind of idea. Because of how stern some people have been, how almost even legalistic to the point where some of it doesn't even matter. Like, okay, so let's just take a moment and let's think. The whole point of this lesson is to provide what? If we look at the beginning of chapter 9 here, okay, and we look at that title, it's to provide what?
a program of worship to do what? To edify the members. That's it. That is the job of the local church. It's one of the jobs of the local church. But I think that what happens here is that, and this is my opinion, and I agree with Bobby here. Bobby said that he didn't agree with a lot of things that are going to be written in this next part too. And I'm kind of along that same way. But I think that we need to look at these so that we can learn from them. Okay? I don't agree with everything that Winkler says here. That's the great thing about this kind of a discussion is that we can voice our opinion. Okay? If we look at this and you feel like, yeah, he's exactly right, that's great. Okay? Some of the things he's not necessarily wrong about, but it's so cut and dry that there's no room for error. And the fact is, guess what? We're people, we're human. We're going to do what? We're going to err. There's a lot of variables and there's a lot of gray area that we have to consider. Okay? And what you're going to see it if you haven't already looked at it. What happens is that when we get so cut and dry and we get so legalistic about some of these things that are not going to send somebody to hell, what happens is that we get judgmental about people that are having issues, that live in that gray area that need our help. And when we live by some of these things that are in part 5 here, that's dangerous. Okay? We're going to go piece by piece. If we get through it, great. If we don't, that's okay. We'll work on it some next week too. If past is any indication, we might get a paragraph or 2, and then we'll have to start over next week anyway. Okay? But looking at this first one here, okay, it says the membership of the Lord's Church must be taught concerning those things which prevent, disturb, or destroy scriptural worship as to avoid them. Is there anything necessarily wrong with that statement? Should we be taught things to avoid in order that might disrupt worship? Yeah. Yeah, we need to be taught things that might disrupt worship. Okay? And you know, it's that said, some of these things that are here, again, we get to be so legalistic about. And it turns to the point we get so legalistic, we get judgmental. And this is where we need to be really careful. Okay, the first one here is being late. I'm going to make this statement right now. At my funeral, I'm going to put it in my will whenever I get around to writing that thing. I'm going to put it in my will that they're going to roll me in about 10 minutes late. Okay? After everybody sat down, and if it starts at 2 o'clock, it's going to be 2 or 2:10, 2:15 before they push me into the sanctuary. Because I'm late for everything. Okay? I'm late for almost everything. I'm almost never on time. But what I think that is important here, let's take a look at this thing. Okay, it says, habitual and unnecessary lateness is caused by irresponsibility. Okay? To a degree, I can see that. There's a certain measure there that he's not necessarily wrong. That said, what does exist in the world? People's responsibilities. If you have to get up and let's say for a moment, Tamara Green, when she was still in Mississippi, okay, who did she bring with her? She brought her daughter, right? Okay, that's a good thing. It's a great thing. But if we get to the point where, okay, because she's showing up and she might be 5 minutes late, if we cast a judgment on her for being 5 minutes late, where's the problem really? Is it with her? Because she's showing up and she's here, she's listening, she's attentive, and she's brought her daughter. She's planting a seed, right? So if we're throwing that judgment, you're exactly right. Where's the problem at? Okay, is it her irresponsibility? I don't know. I don't know what her situation is, necessarily. I don't know what caused her to be late. Okay? Kids are not always predictable. Life is not always predictable. It's happened a couple times when I'm on my way up here, and what's crossing the road this way? Yeah, that way. There's a train. There's a train. I've had a couple deer run out in front of me too. But sometimes there's a train. Can you predict the train? Not always. It's somebody else's job. Okay? But does it get in our way sometimes? It does. And it can cause us to be late. Does that mean that we're being irresponsible? No, it doesn't. Again, the thing here, it is talking about habitual and unnecessary lateness. Okay? So, habitual, I can kind of see it. At the same time, we don't always know the situation. So we got to be careful with the amount of judgment that we're throwing on people here. With that, it says it's caused by irresponsibility, unconcern, and negligence. I was in a class one time, and I had an elder put it a certain way, and I liked the way that he put it. Because it puts a certain perspective on it that I think is necessary. And even though I understood it, and I think that he was right in the perspective that he approached it with, it still didn't necessarily make me be on time. Okay, the perspective was this. He said that you're going to worship, and you're going to go sit in an audience with the creator of the universe. It's a big deal. And you don't want to be late for that. And so I can kind of see the perspective there. I think it's important. I think it's important to try. That said, once again, it goes back to that same idea that we don't know the situation that other people are involved in. We've got to be careful with the level of judgment that we apply because we don't know. It continues on here. It says, such an attitude is not Christ-like. Is that wrong? Is it wrong? Is the statement here, is it Christ-like to be irresponsible? It's not. Is it Christ-like to be not concerned with the proceedings of a worship service? It's not. Is it responsible, or is it Christ-like to be negligent of the worship service? It's not. So it all goes to the point of there are lessons that need to be taught, and it needs to be something that's established and again, it's something that needs to be taught with love. If somebody shows up to worship, even if it's every Sunday, and they show up 5 minutes late, whose job is it to judge that person? It's not ours. We need to be extremely careful in exercising this level of judgment that is here in this book. It says, after all, the entire service is important. That's right. Thus, the worshiper should strive to be present for the complete service, not arriving late or leaving early. If one is unavoidably late, he should wait in the back or in the foyer till a break in the service, and then enter quietly and unobtrusively. Thoughts on that?
Well, I tell you, if something came to my mind,
What you got?
Bill, I know you remember some that they wrote too. JCB, remember JC? He never missed a Wednesday night, never. But he ran a store, and he didn't close at 7 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
The old church building. Everything was turned around.
Yeah.
Yeah, we come in, he goes right front, so there.
Yeah.
He was up, but he can close the store at 7 o'clock.
But he was here, right?
It was? Oh, yeah, there about.
Yeah.
But somebody judged him. You know, he was devout Christian.
Oh, yeah.
But that's
And I think that that's a different kind of situation too. I think that again, the ultimate point here is that this is mostly and mainly about this idea of habitual lateness. Okay, it's something that, okay, theoretically, and this is again the idea of who applies the judgment here. Okay, do we know what's unavoidable for other people? We don't. Okay, we don't know what things are getting in the way of them being here 5 minutes earlier. It might be that they wait till the time's, if they're 5 minutes away and they wait till 7 o'clock to leave their house, then that might be a problem. And again, that depends on what's going on in their life. We don't know. So we have to be extremely careful with that. Yes? Is it intentionally? I don't know. Again, it's all subjective. It depends on the situation. Again, it might be. Yeah, some people are not good at managing time.
Some people might manage.
You think that people are late on purpose?
When you said it like you did,
Okay.
I was at 4 weeks.
Uh-huh.
Guy in the room with me just said, long story, but he finally admitted it, that he was intentionally late. Here's the thing. And I said, why? He said, I've been in less trouble being late than I ever have. So, I mean, sometimes people can be late intentionally.
John,
Yeah.
I did airport. It was 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, their time clock was 15 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
once they did their hair for 3 weeks, and I saw them not at 10 o'clock, at 10:15. Didn't feel legal, but I put it.
Yeah.
I had some people that were only 15, let's see.
Yeah.
Even though they're full. I knew my person, I never told them.
Yeah.
But they didn't. It was like they were all people.
Yeah, and that's kind of, to me, that's more, I think that's more in line with time management issues. Because there are people, and it's a personality flaw. Okay, I think that's a different thing. I think if you're talking about somebody who's intentionally being late, that falls 100% in line with what he's saying here. That's a completely different thing. But there are people who just have poor time management.
I wonder, and I'm not going to chase the head,
Uh-huh.
but I wonder if they're late for work.
Some of them, yeah. But, and here's the thing too, though. I think how to put it. I think their employers are more willing to put up with that kind of thing now than they were even maybe 20 years ago.
They are now.
Yeah. And again, I think that a lot of that has to do with, like, let's say that you have somebody who comes in and they're 5 minutes late every day, but when they show up, they're moving. And they're doing their job, and they might be one of the best people that actually does the job, but they're 5 minutes late every day.
It's about 15 or 30 minutes.
They might, yeah. But they might also be making you twice that much money, though. They might be making you more money than anybody else on the clock.
I'm just gonna be honest with you, John. I think
But that's the difference. That's the difference.
the generation now, I think they're irresponsible.
Yeah, I think that's a large part of it.
I worked for a company, hadn't worked since June, for almost 40 years, never punched a clock.
Mm-hmm.
Never. Was never really a big issue. About a year ago, it was a clock in. Why? Because the mass majority was late.
Mm-hmm.
Now about 30 times you don't have a job,
Oh, yeah.
so I believe it's gotten worse. I've seen, and that's a tunnel vision, I guess you would say. It's not very broad.
Yeah.
But,
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think that there is a generational difference. I think there's certainly.
I think my grandpa and my mom was a lot more comfortable than I.
Oh, well, yeah, that's probably not wrong. No, I completely understand that. Bobby had something.
Not long after 60, I got married, so I thought of that. She went to work for Portage here in Clark, and they made working together before. And I can't remember if she had to be working 15 to 7 or 7 to 15 now.
15 people, I take
Yeah,
my
well,
word.
all I can remember is she was 5 minutes late every day. Every day that girl was going to be 5 minutes late. And I asked her one time, I said, what keep you from getting fired? She said, well, my boss said he would fire me. What was the fact that when I got there, I made over production every day.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, she turned out more work. And that's the only thing that kept her from getting fired.
And well, I mean, that's kind of the thing too. Is some people just they don't have good time management, but once they're there, they're on task. And it's kind of the same thing too here. If we're looking at, and that's where we talked about. You mentioned tunnel vision. This paragraph here. It's applied with tunnel vision, and there's a lot of gray area. Again, somebody might not be able to get anywhere on time, but once they're there, they're doing their job. And who are we as fellow human beings to really apply that level of judgment on that person? We got to be careful with that. And that's one thing that here, this number 1 here on page 63, that's applied with some pretty heavy tunnel vision. Okay, number 2, laughing, talking, and destroying church property. Such not only keeps the person thus guilty from worshiping correctly, but it also disturbs those close by who are wanting to worship correctly. It's kind of a common sense thing. I mean, he's not wrong, but at the same time, I don't know of anybody who has intentionally broken something in a church for the purpose just simply of breaking it. If the person that comes here to worship, they're not going to sit here and peel back the book, the little tray that the book's in. Not going to do that on purpose. There might be the occasion where somebody does something and their OCD gets a little bit better of them, and then they start messing with it. But this
Pretty broke the fire top.
he just picks it up and chucks it down. We need to talk about this. That's a rabbit. I'm ready to chase. Oh, I bet he did.
Everything that black and white, like you said, you always skew for the norm a little bit.
Yeah. Did he clean it up after? Or maybe somebody else cleaned it up.
Yeah, right.
I bet he did. Yeah. Oh man. Okay, that's great. All right. Number 3, children's behavior. Okay. Here's the thing with this one. What are children? What are they? They're small people.
Quiver full of arrows.
A quiver full of arrows. Yeah. And when you're describing the maturity level of children, what do you got? Nothing. There's not a whole lot of maturity there. Okay. Can children be trained? Yeah. Does it take effort as parents and adults to train them? Yeah. It does. Are children good at sitting still and doing nothing for an hour? 30 minutes? 10 minutes? Maybe. It depends on what's on Netflix, right? That's about it. Okay? It depends on what the show is that's on television. And then that's going to be about it. And guys, I know the score. Okay? When I'm up here talking, I see what happens. Okay? If a kid is in the audience, and so long as they're not climbing, walking across the top of the pew, it's not a big deal. Okay? But it's here again. this is really kind of applied with that same tunnel vision again, okay? It says adults can be the cause of such by giving them toys which disturb. Okay, don't bring one of those things that was like the cow says moo, you pull the drawstring back and it spins around. Don't do that. Okay, but that's a common sense thing. Okay, if you bring a Ninja Turtle and the kids in the pew playing with the Ninja Turtle, is it really bothering anybody? It's not. Are they sitting here watching their parents and seeing how they behave? Yeah. Okay, is there a point in time where that child is going to see that behavior and try to mimic that behavior? Yeah. If they get too loud and you know they've got the Ninja Turtles and the Ninja Turtles are fighting each other and they start getting a little too excited in the view, okay, is it at that point where the parent needs to step in and say, calm down a little bit, a little too loud, yeah, okay. But again, there's a whole lot of, there are so many worse things that we have to deal with. Is that child in church? Absolutely. Is that seed being planted? Uh-huh. Okay. Do we really need to complain about it too much? Do we need to send mom and dad and little Johnny to hell because of the fact that he's playing with the Ninja Turtles? We don't. We need to be really careful with the amount of judgment that we apply here or misapply. Making faces at children. Guys, again, to me, this is one of those things that it just seems like if we were to look at Wendell Winkler, or if we were to talk to him now about any of these, but in particular, number 3, after he's old enough to have had grandkids, do you think for a moment that he's not made a face at a child while he's supposed to be in worship? Honestly, we probably all make faces at children. Okay? And I've seen some faces from up here. Okay? Some of them are good and some of them not so much. Okay? If it doesn't bother me, it really shouldn't bother anybody else. Okay, we're going to pick up here on number 3 next week. Okay, 26. Maybe I did. And I just didn't say anything because it's not a big deal. No, well, I mean, it's not, again, it just kind of goes along with that idea, you know, what are we going to, do we need to really, how's entertainment? That's fine, and they're here, you know, and have, you know, as parents and as grandparents, is there not, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing. When the Winkler spoke, there's no way. Then who was it going to listen to and talk? Okay, so maybe it's father. Yeah. Okay. Might as well. Yeah, might as well. Oh, of course it is. Oh, was it Nancy Grace? Okay. Huh. So you would have been 40, roughly 41 as well.
Actually, I don't think it was it shorter that you just like a spoon thread. And they said, like, y'all want to do what?
But they said,
I don't know if I've ever met, but was waiting for it. That's why. So what kind of follow-up was it? Surrounded. And broke. Oh, okay. Oh. So, I'm sure they got their attention too. All right. The song of encouragement this evening is going to be number 948. 948. This evening on the ride up, I was just when you ride in the rain, it's not a whole lot of fun. And it was a pretty significant amount of rain on the way up, and it was raining pretty heavy, and as I was coming up, there was a lot of trucks that were passing, and when you're in the right lane and you're being passed by large semi trucks, you kind of know what happens. You almost lose your sight, right? And you know, it just kind of reminded me of this idea of what our job is to the world. It's, you know, our job, our responsibility as Christians is we're to be the light to the world, right? We have this responsibility to bring Christ to everyone else. And when we consider that, the thing that we need to make sure that we're doing is focusing our attention on the light that's in front of us. Right? Sometimes it's easy to get distracted and we lose our way. But the thing that we need to try to make sure that we do is to live our lives with the light that Christ provides as the center to our whole lives. And if we can do that, we can live our lives wholly around this one true source of a real legitimate light, then we have such a great example. And we got such a great light to follow. John chapter 8, verse 12, it says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness. Okay, on the way up, it was dark. Okay, and every time a semi truck would pass me, it's water. Okay, I had to get those wipers going faster. I wouldn't be able to see. I was going to lose the light in the dark because of the things that were in the way. But what we have here, it says that whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Okay? So whoever follows Jesus, they're going to have that light of life. Those that are committed to following Jesus, as that we will have we have this idea that we're constantly being led by Him and led into the light. And He's constantly, because He is that light, He's constantly beckoning us away from the darkness. Okay, what is the darkness? That that darkness, that idea of darkness, it surrounds us. There's a lot of darkness in this world. And it surrounds us, and it's really kind of scary when we stop and we examine it. And to be honest, that darkness, what does it do? That darkness, it attracts us, and it calls us. But so does that light. So does the light that's there, and it calls us to a life that is centered around Jesus, and it's centered around His kingdom. And we have to, for a moment, we got to be introspective too. Okay, when we consider this idea of that light in and of ourselves, we're going to be in darkness. Okay, we have no light on our own. It's not there. But left to our own devices, we would live our entire lives in darkness. We wouldn't have this abundant joy and this peace that's available to us because we can see what is in God and what's in Christ. But through Jesus, this light is available. And because of that, we can see the glory of God, and we can see that He's put into us this joy and this peace if we simply surrender our lives to God, to Him. And at that point, we'll be able to share that light that He brings. We'll experience this life of freedom and joy. It's found in the unconditional love that comes from God. We have to choose to follow Jesus. We have to choose to place Jesus as the center of all that we do and who we are. And once we do that, then we'll be able to take hold of that deliverance that comes from Him. The deliverance that tries to hold us down, that causes the constraints and the bonds that are there in the darkness. The path out of darkness, it begins by looking to the light. Sometimes we've got to take a moment. We have to be ready to escape that darkness. We have to be looking forward. When we focus on sin, we can't escape sin by focusing on it. We can't escape sin by trying to fix it ourselves or try to heal it ourselves or try to set ourselves free. We're not capable of doing that. Freedom from that, it comes by turning our attention to God, by focusing on the light that's there, by that God who conquered sin and conquered death and provides that light for us, by fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, in verse 6, it says, "For God, who said, 'Let light shine out of darkness,' has shone in our hearts to give the light of knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Christ Jesus." We have an opportunity to take hold of that light today. You have an opportunity right now. If you've not been baptized, then you're not in the light. You're not walking in the light. You have an opportunity to fix that now. If you've been one who has stepped outside of the light and you found yourself walking in darkness again, you have an opportunity also to fix that. Whatever your need, please come now. Let's together we stand and sing.
First, second, fourth verse, 9:48. I am resolved no longer to linger, charmed by the world's delight. Things that are higher, things that are nobler, these have allured my sight. I will hasten to Him, hasten so glad and free. Jesus, greatest highest, I will come to Thee. I am resolved to go to the Savior, leaving my sin and strife. He is the true one, He is the just one, He hath the words of life. highest, I will come to thee. I am resolved to enter the kingdom, leaving the path of sin. Friends may oppose me, foes may resent me, still will I enter in. I will hasten to him, hasten so glad and free. Jesus, greatest, highest, I will come to thee. Not to thank everyone coming out tonight. If you're visiting with us, you're honored guest, and come back anytime again. Keep everyone in their prayers without wants to, but and everyone have a safe rest of the week. Any other announcement? Brother Cliff, business.
Father, having the possibility of saving back to prison, each of us have to come to the place of worship. Pray especially for the church, the congregation. Keep one representing after the shine cloud. Also, mindful of those. Pray for everyone and those fire and exit. Don't know that I'm I also thank God for those things going on in their life. Very much thankful for this way. That's my blessing. Things you say, all on open heart and minds, fight for life and spirit. And that's my blessing, especially. Pray for all them the decisions they take. And the good one with you. Yes, and now go with us on. Give each of us for mentioning, pass on we pray.
Amen.